Hello and welcome to the Restful and Quiet Pre-menstrual Practice. The sessions in this short course in this series are in two parts. There is one part which talks about the approach to doing regular practice, but just adapting it slightly so that it does not cause further exhaustion or does not cause further aggravation of the premenstrual symptoms. And this is the second segment, which is about how to deal with the premenstrual period in case the symptoms are moderate to extreme.
Now, some women are fortunate enough that their periods can approach and they can commence and they can end with barely any trouble at all. But there are also women and there are life situations and life conditions. So even if a woman normally regularly has pain-free, discomfort-free periods, these things can change.
And there is a good reason for this. The hormonal level in a woman's body
Follows a cyclical pattern.
The cyclical pattern itself means that on some days of the month or some periods of the month, levels of some hormones are high and on other days they are low. Just look at the crash in the levels of estrogen and progesterone in the days leading up to the monthly periods. These hormones have systemic effects. They don't just affect the reproductive organ, and also at different stages in a woman's life, the cyclicity of the hormones means that things can go a little out of whack, bringing with them symptoms which maybe didn't happen last year or a few years before. The premenstrual period itself doesn't have a fixed time period. It could just be a couple of days before the onset of the monthly periods. For some women, it can range to a much longer period, maybe a week or even 10 days. In Iyengar Yoga, even for women who have completely pain-free periods, it is highly recommended to follow a practice that is in sync with the cyclical nature of the endocrine hormonal system for a woman. This means to adapt the practice slightly a couple of days before the onset of the periods, during the periods, and also immediately after the periods. For women for whom the premenstrual period gets significantly uncomfortable, and also for women who have other complications of the reproductive system like polycystic ovaries, endometriosis, fibroids, etc., this kind of an adapted practice is very highly recommended. Pretty much all therapeutic practices make use of props. A lot of them are supported practices, and we can't really do away with the props, which also makes it a little bit difficult to really communicate it through a medium like this, because the use of props, the fine tuning of the props is a little bit nuanced, and if they are not placed properly, if they are not done under supervision, sometimes it just doesn't work, and in worst cases symptoms can actually get worse. So, I have tried my best to pick a sequence today where the setup is not very complicated. However, I will be using props. If you are just playing around with props on any regular day when you are feeling fine, there's no danger as such. So, you might get a little sore somewhere or get a little strain somewhere, and you will be okay in a day or two. So, it is fine to play around with the props with that playful attitude, but if you are trying to use props for a specific therapeutic purpose, we really have to be a lot more attentive and mindful. I will try my best to make the instructions detailed, but to not make them very complicated. So, it is a bit of a balancing act, which also means that I have had to leave out of the sequence many asanas, many positions, many adaptations, which I felt I could not communicate fairly. However, I am pretty sure that even with the limitations of the medium and also with the limited number of props that one can expect others to have at home, what we are going to do is going to be pretty effective. The specific symptoms that today's sequence will help with is mental anxiety, sense of irritability, and also cramping, which can happen in the period just leading up to menstruation. If you have got hold of this recording, I would highly recommend that try it on a day when you are actually not in the premenstrual period and you are not already feeling irritable and anxious and crampy. get little familiar with it, and it will be more useful when you try it for maybe the second or the third time when you actually do need it. In addition to working with whatever we do today, I do highly recommend also working with a separate session that we have, which is called working with a soft abdomen. I am going to talk about keeping your abdomen soft throughout today's session also, but the other session has many more strategies of how to maintain the softness of the abdomen in various kinds of position, and that is something really that is very important for a woman to remember, not just at this period but for the entire month.